I swear to God, I could pull a random guy off the street and have a better marriage than with you. Sensing the unmistakable aroma of premium-grade drama, my best friend Kevin and I looked up from our food truck tacos at the exact same time. We shared a knowing grin. Then, as if guided by a single thought, we grabbed our paper plates and scurried toward the action. There's no better seasoning than someone else's messy breakup. We squatted on the curb, shoveling barbacoa into our faces while watching a guy and a girl go at it. I swallowed a mouthful of corn tortilla and pointed with my plastic fork. Dude, look, look. She's about to slap the designer stubble right off his face. Kevin mumbled through a mouthful of his own. Guy's a total doormat. He's just standing there taking it. But hey, you got to admit the girl's a knockout. Seriously hot. I agree. Makes for a good dinner and a show. He gave me a sly look, his smile so greasy and conspiratorial that I snorted, sending a spray of half-chewed taco out of my mouth. I quickly ducked my head down, try to recover. Just then, Kevin's voice hissed next to me. Oh crap, Leo, run. She's coming this way. How the hell was I supposed to run? I had cilantro coming out of my nose. Useless. I cursed him internally. When I finally looked up, a stunningly beautiful face was less than an inch from mine. I glanced to the side. No sign of Kevin, just the pathetic sight of his back as he sprinted away down the block. I looked back at the woman, saw the dangerous glint in her eyes, and mentally sentenced Kevin to death by 1,000 paper cuts. She smirked, and before I could react, her hand clamped around the back of my neck. She hauled me to my feet. With a taco plate in each hand, I couldn't even try to pry her fingers off. Hey, beautiful, I stammered. Just enjoying the show. No need to get physical, right? Shut up. The ferocity in her voice shut me down instantly. It was a tone I knew all too well. One that had been perfected by my own mother over 2 decades of yelling at me. She pushed me forward, marching me toward the guy she'd been fighting with. As we got closer, panic set in. Look, lady, I'm just a guy eating a taco. I pleaded in a low voice. I really don't want to get involved in your stuff. She ignored me, her face an icy mask. As she addressed the pretty boy. You better take it back right now. It's not like you're the only piece of arm candy in this city. I could see the guy hesitate, but his pride won out. What are you going to marry this bum instead? You're the bum. Your whole family is full of bums. I grumbled in my head. My captor's expression hardened into something resembling a block of Arctic ice. Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. My own brain went into overdrive. I was still a virgin, for Christ's sake. Oh, hey, no, miss. I'm just an innocent bystander here. I never said I'd marry you. Seeing this, the pretty boy's smugness inflated. He put his hands on his hips and laughed. See, even this slob in rags doesn't want you. The woman's glare, now dangerously cold, shot toward me. As much as my mom had conditioned me to be terrified of angry women, a man has to have some pride. What did I say? Something wrong? It's true. I'm just a guy who was watching from the sidelines. She leaned in close, her face a mask of frost. I flinched, expecting a punch. Instead, she whispered in my ear, marry me. I'll pay you $10,000 a month, and you won't have to perform any husbandly duties. I nearly choked. $10,000 a month to do absolutely nothing. I cleared my throat. Suddenly a changed man, you know, on second thought, honey, when are we heading down to the courthouse to make this official now? And just like that, ignoring the bewildered stares of the crowd and the furious glower of the pretty boy, she took my hand and pulled me away. Halfway down the block, the ex-boyfriend ran to cut us off, then dropped to his knees right there on the sidewalk, startling me. He put on what he must have thought was a heart-meltingly handsome expression. Isabel, I was wrong, he said, his voice dripping with fake sincerity. I know you're just trying to make me jealous. You don't really want to marry this guy. His eyes then locked onto me. And you, let go of my Isabel's hand. Now. I shot a pained look at the woman beside me. A $10,000 a month job wasn't easy to come by. Please don't fall for it. Please don't fall for it. I chanted in my head. My prayers were answered. The woman, Isabel, snatched the remaining taco plate from my other hand, and without a word, appended it directly onto the kneeling man's perfectly coiffed hair. He let out a squeal like a stuck pig, a sound so pathetic it was almost painful to hear. With a hint of sympathy, giving him a pitying look. You, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. You're not worthy. Let's go. She pulled me along, and seeing the mess of salsa, meat, and sour cream sliding down the guy's face, I followed meekly, throwing one last apologetic glance over my shoulder. He scrambled to his feet, his face a comical mess of grease and rage. You, too. You will regret this. If I can't be happy, neither can you. But with red sauce dripping from his bangs, he looked more ridiculous than threatening. Sorry about that, brother, I thought a little guilty. But man, I do love extra hot sauce. At the county courthouse, a clerk handed us the forms. Isabel gave me a look loaded with meaning. You sure about this? Once you sign, there's no going back. Was she kidding? 10 grand a month? It was the easiest job I'd ever land. With a flourish of determination, I signed my name, pressing the pen down hard. Walking out of the courthouse, I stared dumbly at the marriage certificate in my hand. I looked at the bride's name, Isabel Sterling. It was a nice name, I had to admit. In her photo, she was smiling at the camera, but I could see it didn't quite reach her eyes. Me, on the other hand, I was grinning like a complete idiot. A pure, unadulterated fool in love with his new bank account. Well, this is my life now, I thought. I'm only in it for the money anyway. What's wrong? Regretting it already, I looked at her dressed in a simple white sundress. She was frowning at me. Her brow furrowed beautifully. No, I said, just amazed that I somehow managed to get married by accident. At that, she laughed, and seeing her truly smile, I was floored. It was the first time I'd really looked at her face. Until now, I'd been completely absorbed by the joy of my $10,000 salary. Her loose hair shone in the afternoon sun, and her laugh revealed 2 charming dimples. Beneath her elegant eyebrows, her eyes sparkled, and her cherry red lips curved into a perfect arc, showing off a set of pearly white teeth. Watching a blush creep up her cheeks, I snapped back to reality and scratched the back of my head sheepishly. I stuck out a hand. Right, I'm Leo. Leo Carter. She shook it. Isabel Sterling. After we let go, an awkward silence fell. We just stood there on the steps of the courthouse like a couple of idiots. Finally, some guy stormed past us, nearly shoving me out of the way. Excuse me, can you move? He grumbled. Some of us are in a hurry to get a divorce. Can't stand you lovey-dovey types. We quickly parted to let him through. Sorry about that, man. I called after him, bowing slightly. First time getting married. A little nervous. He just shot me a dirty look over his shoulder. The woman following him, however, gave me a small, amused smile before disappearing inside. What was with that? And why was Isabel laughing now, too? I was completely lost. What's so funny? I asked her. She just covered her mouth, her eyes crinkling as she pointed to a coffee shop across the street. Let's go over there and talk. Without waiting for an answer, she started walking. Baffled, I followed. Inside the cafe, I stared at the digital menu on the tablet and marveled at the owner's sheer genius. Not only had they opened a coffee shop directly across from the courthouse, but they had given the drinks the most absurdly cheesy names. The True Love Cappuccino Combo. How could 2 cups of coffee possibly cost $52? Even more outrageous was the Happily Ever After latte set just by adding the word happy. They had the nerve to charge $131. They were basically robbing people and being kind enough to throw in some coffee. I shook my head at every single price. The crazy part was the place was packed. What is it? Isabel asked, looking at me strangely from across the table. Oh, nothing. Don't you think the prices on this menu are a little insane? I whispered. Really? I don't think so. She glanced down at the tablet, swiped a couple of times, and then looked back up at me. Seeing her genuinely puzzled expression, I mentally slapped myself. Right, I forgot this girl is loaded. My bad, my bad. Never mind. Never mind. You order, I said, turning the tablet back toward her to avoid the awkwardness. I watched her tap the screen a few times, then lock it. If I wasn't mistaken, she had just ordered the most expensive package on a menu. The move stunned me. Let's talk about the terms of our arrangement, she said, her tone shifting. I snapped back to attention. Her hands were now clasped under her chin, her eyes sharp and calculating. A shiver of fear ran down my spine. Hey, boss, you said I wouldn't have to perform any husbandly duties. She burst out laughing, shattering the tension. What on earth are you thinking about? I meant other things. Hearing her spell it out, my face flushed with heat. I totally let my mind go there. Right. You talk, I'll listen, I said quickly. Isabel gave me a look so full of sophisticated charm it made my skin crawl. While you don't have to fulfill a husband's duties, you'll have to fulfill a son-in-law's. I need you to be present whenever my parents want to see you. That includes holidays and family visits. You'll have to come home with me to see them. She paused. Of course, if you ever need me for a similar situation on your end, I'll do the same. How does that sound? Oh, is that all? I thought that was going to be some huge ordeal, making old people happy. I was a pro at that. No problem, I said confidently. You can count on me. For 10 grand a month, I'll make sure our parents have absolutely nothing to complain about. We'll see if you're that confident later. I saw the disbelief in her eyes and made a silent promise to myself. Just you wait. All right, I mumbled. We should probably exchange numbers. Don't want this whole thing to fall apart before it even starts because we can't get in touch, I added. And we haven't figured out how you're going to pay me. You could just Venmo it. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen and saw my bank balance jump to over 6 figures. A wave of pure bliss washed over me. I couldn't wait to tell my good-for-nothing best friend about this. Well, Boss Isabel, if there's nothing else, I'm going to take off, I said, already getting up. Call me if anything comes up. I didn't even wait for her to nod before I bolted for the door. On my way out, a waiter intercepted me, confirming which table I was at. Then, under the waiter's shocked gaze, I unapologetically grabbed one of the ridiculously expensive coffee from his tray and chugged it down. You know what? It was actually good. Way better than the instant coffee packets I usually made. Then, leaving a trail of confused onlookers in my wake, I burst out of the cafe. Back at the table, Isabel stared, dumbfounded by Leo's bizarre exit. When the bewildered waiter looked at her for guidance, she just gave a slight embarrassed nod. She had just taken a sip of her own coffee when her phone rang. Seeing the name flashing on the screen, she frowned with annoyance. She set her cup down and walked out of the cafe before answering. You don't have to worry, she said before the person on the other end could speak. I've already found someone. We're married. The license is signed. There was a long pause on the other end, and when the voice finally came, it lacked its usual authority. Honey, your mother isn't trying to force you. It's just that your grandfather's will is very specific. You have to be married to take over the company. Otherwise, it all goes to your cousin. The woman on the phone didn't seem surprised at all that her daughter had actually gotten married. I know, Isabel said coolly, her voice betraying no emotion, as if she were talking to an enemy, not her mother. Hearing the coldness in her daughter's voice, the mother sighed, but what could she do? It was all because of greed, and now it was too late to turn back. It was only one path forward. She quickly changed the subject. So, what's he like, your new husband? At that, an image of Leo's goofy, taco-stained face flashed through Isabel's mind, and a rare, gentle smile touched her lips. Nice, okay. Isabel's tone had softened without her realizing it. On the other end of the line, her mother heard it loud and clear and was overjoyed. But before she could say anything, Isabel spoke again. I'm bringing him to see Grandpa next week. With that, she hung up, giving her mother no chance to interject. In a lavishly decorated room in a mansion that looked like something out of a magazine, a woman with refined posture and an elegant dress sat on a sofa. She bore a striking resemblance to Isabel. Her mother, Elaine Sterling. A playful smile danced on her lips. She knew her daughter better than anyone. This meant she was actually interested in a man for once. She wondered who this mystery person could be. She almost called her assistant to run a background check, but then remembered her daughter was bringing him home next week and stopped herself. Meanwhile, I kicked open the door to my dorm room. With a groan of splintering wood, a door met its tragic end. Whoa, 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 Kevin, I said, cover my mouth to stifle a laugh. Dude, if you're going to do that, at least lock the door. I had him on the bottom bunk, one hand holding a roll of toilet paper, the other doing God knows what under the covers. Screw you, man. I was wiping up sweat. You get it? Sweat, he shot back, flustered. And what do you mean lock the door? Did you knock? Seeing his face flush with rage, I let out a loud laugh. Yeah, my bad. I should have knocked. He gave me a withering look. Then his expression suddenly turned grim. The RA told us we have to be out by Monday. You find a place yet? His words sobered me up, but a different thought was already forming in my head. I'm legally married to her. It wouldn't be shameful to live with her, would it? I cleared my throat dramatically. Well, my dear boy, I took a little break this afternoon to get married. If all goes according to plan, I'm officially a kept man now. I feigned, wiping a tear from my eye as I looked up at the ceiling. I glanced back at Kevin on the bed. He just scoffed and rolled his eyes at me. Without another word, I pulled out my marriage certificate and slapped it onto his chest. See for yourself. Is it real or not? Then I swaggered over to the edge of his bed and sat down. He kept staring at the certificate, his face a mask of utter disbelief. No way. You actually did it. That's right. The doctor said, I have a sensitive stomach and can only digest the finer things in life. 10 grand a month to lie around and do nothing. I watched the envy contort his face and nodded in understanding. If our roles were reversed, I'd be making the same face. You hate to see your bro struggle, but you also hate to see him driving a Porsche. This was exactly that. Just then, my phone rang. I picked it up and almost threw it across the room in terror. The caller ID read, The Dragon Lady. My hand trembled as I swiped to answer. Kevin, seeing my fear, went dead silent. Hello, Mom. A booming voice came through the speaker. Why are you whispering? Got no energy. No wonder you couldn't find a girlfriend all through college. I didn't dare talk back. She kept going. And another thing, I want you to find a girlfriend by this Sunday. I don't care how you do it. If you don't, you can forget about calling me your mother. I swallowed hard. Even though I had a wife on paper, I didn't dare tell my mom yet. I was afraid she'd beat me into a pulp. She heard my silence and roared. Did you hear me? The phone nearly jumped out of my hand. Yes, heard you loud and clear. I yelled. She let out a satisfied laugh and hung up. I heard Kevin gulp beside me. We'd grown up together, practically brothers, and he'd received his fair share of beatings from my mom, too. He sighed, then shot me a glare. Well, lucky you. You've already got the certificate. A little thing like this is nothing to you. He smacked his forehead and then pointed a finger at me menacingly. But if my mom finds out you're married and starts pressuring me to find someone, I swear to God, I'm coming for you first. I just gave him the finger. Come on, let's go, he said, suddenly jumping out of bed. Let's have an all-nighter gaming session. And you, Mr. Big Shot, are paying. You're on. I'll show you the skills of a pro-level Talon. And just like that, we were off. We played straight through until the sun came up the next day. You suck, man. 0 to 13. You call yourself a pro? I've never seen anyone play so bad. I was just having an off night. I retorted defensively like your 1 to 4 record is any better and you totally stole my 1 kill. We argued all the way from my apartment back to the dorm. The second our heads hit our pillows, we both went silent as if under a spell. I woke up in the afternoon to a string of missed call notifications on my phone, all from a contact labeled my rich wife. I shot upright instantly wide awake and quickly hit redial. Meanwhile, in a top-floor office at the Sterling Corporation headquarters, Isabel, now in full control of her company, was reviewing a business proposal. Her eyes flickered to the phone on her desk with a name, my cheap husband, was flashing on the screen. A cold glint appeared in her eyes. She might have a slight soft spot for him, but she wasn't someone to be ignored. She let it ring, finally picking up on the 10th call. On my end, I had been frantically hitting redial. It wasn't a good look to be MIA on the first day of the job. When she finally answered, I rushed to apologize. Honey babe, I'm so sorry. I pulled an all-nighter gaming and overslept. Isabel had been ready to give him a stern warning. But hearing him call her honey, a strange feeling welled up inside her. Definitely not annoyance. Just be more careful next time, she found herself saying, get some sleep. The word surprised her. Had that really come out her mouth? Hearing the soft tone in her voice, I felt my brain starting to short-circuit. I quickly pushed the feeling down. So, honey, what's up? Isabel remembered why she had called. Are you free on Monday? I need to take you to my family's house. I remembered my mom's ultimatum. Actually, I have a situation here, too. I need you to come home with me on Sunday. Okay. She agreed readily, hearing her easy acceptance. I decided to push my luck. So, do you have a spare room at your place? What are you trying to pull? Isabel's voice sharpened. She crossed her legs, her brow furrowed. Did I misjudge him? She thought. I immediately recognized the misunderstanding. Whoa. No, don't get the wrong idea. I'm graduating, so I'm getting kicked out of the dorms. I don't have anywhere else to go. So I have to stay with you, honey. Hearing my explanation, Isabel let out a quiet sigh of relief. And hearing me call her honey again, she silently cursed me. Smooth talker, just wait at the university. I'll have my assistant come pick you up to help you move, she said, then hung up. She shook her head and went back to the documents on her desk. After I hung up, I turned to see Kevin staring at me with the most pitiful, mournful expression. I just gave him a little wave, a gesture that clearly said, sorry, bro, but you've still got a lot to learn. I heard him mutter, jerk, under his breath. But I chose to ignore it, chalking it up to the envious whispers one must endure on the path to greatness. The efficiency of a top-tier CEO is no joke. Less than 2 hours later, her assistant called me. As I leaned out of the window of a sleek black Escalade, I blew a dramatic air kiss to my stunned brother standing on the curb behind me. I had to admit, showing off in front of your best friend is one of life's purest pleasures. My phone started buzzing with a relentless stream of messages from him. I decisively switched it to silent. When the assistant led me into a magnificent villa, I was completely awestruck by the sprawling grounds and the exquisite interior design. She showed me to a guest room that, despite being a guest room, was bigger than the two-person dorm I had just left. The best part, it had its own private bathroom. Even though we were legally married, I knew my place. I was basically a high-class freeloader, a house pet who didn't have to do any chores. I understood the difference and didn't entertain any fantasies of some real-life romance blooming between us. For the next few days, I didn't see Isabel at all. The only people I saw were the handful of housekeepers who came and went cleaning the villa. I spent most of my time texting Kevin complaining about Isabel's extravagant lifestyle, owning a mansion she never even came home to. His replies were usually just eye-roll emojis before he ghosted me. Finally, on Saturday, the day before a trip to my parents', she came home. If she hadn't, I would have had to call her. Seeing her sitting on the sofa, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Enjoying your time off?" Isabel asked coolly, glancing up at me as I stood on the stairs. Although she hadn't been home, the house staff had been giving her daily reports on my every move, including my text complaints to Kevin. Hearing her words, I just scratched my head and laughed awkwardly. "It's been all right." All right. The truth was, I barely knew my own wife, including this moment. We had only seen each other twice. Perhaps because I'd been relatively well behaved, Isabel just shot me a look and didn't press the issue. "What time are we leaving for your parents' house tomorrow?" "We should leave by 9 o'clock. We should get there around noon." I watched as Isabel stretched her graceful body on the sofa. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." "Wake me up in the morning," she said tiredly. Without waiting for my reply, she walked straight past me and up the stairs to the master bedroom. Fine by me. Her ignoring meant less trouble for me. I headed straight for the kitchen, grabbing a pot and firing up the stove with practiced ease. Just as Isabel, freshly showered, was about to get into bed, she caught the scent of freshly cooked ramen. Her eyes snapped open and she followed the aroma toward the kitchen. Behold, the masterpiece is complete. Leo's signature ramen. I declared to my steaming bowl with a touch of nerdy pride. I looked up only to see Isabel standing there wrapped in a fluffy white towel. Her flawless pale skin made me pause for a second, but I quickly regained my composure. After all, I knew the difference between a beautiful sight I couldn't have and a delicious meal I could eat. Seeing her standing there, my mind conjured up an anime scene of a cute, shy girl asking me for a bite of my noodles. But Isabel wasn't playing by any script. Without a single word, she walked over and simply took the entire bowl of ramen I had painstakingly prepared. For good measure, she stared me dead in the eyes as she took the first slurp. The move left me completely stunned. Was this the same cold, aloof CEO? I was about to argue with her, but then the three words $10,000 floated through my mind. I will endure. I proceeded to wash the pots and pans with a series of loud, resentful clangs. Seeing her still slurping away without a care in the world, I stormed back to my guest room in a huff. Hearing the loud slam of a door from downstairs, Isabel suddenly broke into a laugh. All traces of her cold demeanor gone. She propped one leg up on another chair, bouncing the other one rhythmically, looking for all the world like a regular person enjoying a late-night snack. "He's not a bad cook either," she mumbled to herself between slurps. "This is actually really good." If I had heard that, I would have proudly declared, "A Texas boy has to know his way around a kitchen." But at that moment, I was sulking under my covers, my eyes squeezed shut in protest. The next day, in the car, I stared in shock at the woman behind the wheel. Forget makeup. This was a full-blown transformation. Overnight, she had gone from an intimidating CEO to the sweet girl next door. Isabel, sensing my stunned gaze, felt a flicker of pride. "That's right, little man. I can still charm you." And so, with me navigating from the passenger seat, we arrived at my family's house just before lunch. Isabel walked ahead while I carried the gift baskets. But when my mom opened the door, she smiled warmly, took the gift from my hands, and then promptly shut the door in my face. Is this something a real mother does? Son gets replaced the second a daughter-in-law shows up. In any other family, I wouldn't believe it, but in mine, it was entirely possible. I let out a helpless laugh, staring at the closed door, wondering what was happening inside. The door finally opened just as the sun began to set. I watched my mom walk my rich wife out, both of them laughing and chatting. My mom didn't even glance at me. I followed behind them, utterly baffled. They'd spent less than half a day together, and we're already this close. I got into the car completely confused. No matter how many times I asked Isabel what they talked about, she would just give me a teasing look and say nothing. After getting nowhere, I finally gave up and slumped back in my seat. Let be. I was done trying to figure it out. A guy like me probably deserved this. Getting paid to be a kept man and ride in luxury cars was clearly my punishment for all my evil deeds in a past life. When we got back to her house, I made myself a bowl of ramen. This time, I was smarter. I immediately took a big defiant bite right in front of her. She didn't try to steal it this time, and I happily slurped down the entire bowl. I did some mental math. I ate her food, used her stuff, and didn't have to pay for anything. All while getting a $10,000 deposit in my bank account every month, zero expenses. As I picture my bank account balance jumping from 5 figures to 6, then 7, I couldn't help but grin so wide I almost couldn't eat my ramen. Isabel, who was walking up the stairs, saw my idiotic expression and had a fleeting thought. Did this guy get food poisoning? He looks like a total fool. But seeing that I was physically fine, she just let out a small chuckle and headed to her bedroom. Another week passed peacefully. We coexisted like roommates with one major change. The private chef had been let go, and that ridiculously rich woman now demanded that I cook for her every day. Every time I chopped vegetables, I did it with gritted teeth, imagining that the carrots were Isabel as I brought the knife down with vengeful force. The loud thuds on the cutting board would always bring her to the kitchen to investigate. But for my $10,000 salary, I endured. I would just put on a smile and ask her what she wanted to eat. But then the woman pushed her luck. She actually had her assistant create a menu for me. She would just text me her order, and I was expected to cook it and deliver it to her office. After a while, everyone at her company knew who I was. They would nod and greet me respectfully whenever they saw me. It was the only place I could find a shred of self-esteem. Even though I knew the truth, I was just a delivery boy. Today was the day I was meeting her family. I had taken some of my hard-earned kept man money and bought myself a sharp suit. I had to look presentable, but of course, she had already prepared one for me. When I asked her to reimburse me for the suit I'd bought, she refused. $800. A huge chunk of my monthly allowance gone on a single piece of clothing. My heart ached, but when I got in the car and saw what she was wearing, I was the one left speechless. Wait, you're seriously wearing pajamas to your parents' house? I stared at her dumbfounded. She was sitting in the driver's seat in a pink silk pajama set, her hair completely undone. She just slammed her foot on the gas, the car lurching forward. What's with all the questions? I'm just going home. Do I need to be as formal as you? Hearing her say it like that, I guess it made a weird kind of sense. I turned to look out the window, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I completely missed the mischievous smile that flashed across her face. The moment I stepped out of the car at her family's estate, Isabel stumbled out of the driver's side and fell into my arms, nuzzling against my chest. At that exact moment, the grand front doors of the mansion swung open and a crowd of people spilled out. I stood there frozen, staring at them as they stared back at us. My face flushed beet red from my neck all the way to my ears. Wake up! Stop messing with me! I hissed at the woman in my arms. But she just kept her eyes closed, a look of blissful contentment on her face. I thought you were so good at this, she whispered. Show me what you've got. Seeing her like this, a wicked grin spread across my face. All right, you asked for it. Isabel's eyes flew open with a hint of panic. She tried to squirm in my grasp, but the strength difference was too great. She only succeeded in making her own face flush with exertion. I held her tight and under the shocked gaze of her entire family, scooped her up into a princess carry and started walking toward them. That finally seemed to quiet her down. Her face was still red, but now, whether it was from the effort or from embarrassment, even she probably couldn't say. I smiled and greeted them one by one. Isabel had shown me pictures so I could put a title to most of the faces. I addressed the middle-aged couple at the front. Mom, Dad, I said with a charming smile. They were clearly still processing the scene. My eyes darted around. My brain went into overdrive and the lies started flowing. Mom, Dad, Belle, and I had a bit of a late night, so she fell asleep in the car. Could you show me to her room so I could put her down? Ouch. That was her pinching the flesh on my stomach. I looked down at the person in my arms who was now unnaturally still. Then a spry old man at the back of the group let out a hearty laugh. Ah, you young people, he boomed. Come with me. I saw that everyone else was silent and Isabel's parents were giving me a look that was hard to decipher. The woman in my arms was turning redder by the second. I suddenly remembered who the old man was and grinned. Okay, Grandpa. The woman in my arms shrank even further into my chest, her entire face now the color of a boiled lobster. How am I doing, honey? I whispered to her, her grip on my side tightened, the pain making me wince. A moment later, the old man opened a door. Seeing the room's overwhelmingly pink and frilly decor, I shot a surprised look at the person in my arms. The Ice Queen CEO's room was this color. As if sensing my thoughts, she shot me a venomous glare from my embrace. I could only offer an innocent look in return. After I laid her down on the bed, I noticed her grandfather hadn't left. He was just standing behind me watching. Come on, young man. Let's go eat. Just let her sleep here. I nodded and followed him. It wasn't until I sat down at the dining table that I realized my mistake. Without Isabel, I didn't know a single person here. 8 pairs of eyes were fixed on me, and I could only sit there awkwardly. Finally, the grandfather spoke. What are you all staring at Leo for? Eat. I shot the old man a grateful look, but his next words nearly made me spit out the food in my mouth. So, Leo, when are you and Belle going to give me a great-grandchild? Everyone at the table stopped what they were doing and turned to look at me. And Isabel wasn't there to bail me out. I could only laugh nervously. We're working on it. As soon as possible. The old man put down his chopsticks and sighed dramatically. I'm an old man. I don't know if I'll even live long enough to hold my great-grandchild. I could feel the pressure from all sides of the table. Do you have to start with the nuclear option? I screamed internally. What could I do? If I didn't agree, no one was going to enjoy this meal. I forced a smile. Grandpa, we'll try our best this year. We'll aim to get pregnant this year so you can hold the baby next year. A sly look flashed in his eyes. Is that so? You're not just tricking an old man, are you? Absolutely not. With that, he whipped out a document from behind his back and handed it to me. I opened it and saw that it was a contract detailing my promise almost word for word. I gave the mischievous old man a weary smile. So, he had this planned all along. Still, I gritted my teeth and signed my name. The signature is down, I thought. But whether or not your granddaughter cooperates is her problem. Sure enough, as soon as I signed, the old man snatched the paper away. After confirming my signature, he burst into a laughter. All traces of his earlier melancholy gone. What are you all waiting for? Eat, eat. With the old man's mood restored, the tension at the table finally broke. Everyone started eating and drinking, constantly toasting me. The grandfather kept insisting I drink a strange-tasting soup. And since he was pouring it for me himself, I couldn't exactly refuse. By the time I realized something was wrong, my head was already crashing onto the dining table. The people at the table seemed to have expected this. Without missing a beat, they grabbed my arms and legs and started carrying me toward Isabel's room. Inside, Isabel had been sitting on her bed ever since I left, nervously fiddling with a stuffed animal and the bracelet on her wrist. Hearing the commotion outside, she quickly laid down and pretended to be asleep. The group tiptoed in, gently placed me on the bed, and then tiptoed back out. Once they were gone, Isabel's eyes snapped open. She wrinkled her nose at the strong smell of alcohol coming from me, and gave my stomach a light smack. But then she found herself just staring at my sleeping face for a few seconds before murmuring, "He's actually kind of handsome." Just as she was about to get out of bed, a hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. She turned to look. Leo's eyes were bloodshot and he was staring at her with an intensity that sent a jolt of fear through her. "Leo, wake up," she cried out, her voice filled with panic. But Leo, piled with the old man's potent brew, couldn't hear her. Soon, the room fell silent, giving way to a storm that had been brewing all night. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache. I looked at the chaotic state of the room and groaned, pressing my hands to my temples. That old man. I couldn't believe he'd actually resort to getting me blackout drunk. Now, this was a real mess. I was truly responsible. My movement must have been too big because it woke the person beside me. But she didn't scream or cry. She just stared at me with an expression that made my blood run cold. She silently tapped out a few messages on her phone, then got out of bed, dressed, and walked out of the room without a word. I sighed, getting up to try and clean the messy bed. As I pulled back the sheets, my eyes locked on a single stark red stain. My expression shifted. I carefully folded the sheet and put everything else back where it belonged. When I finally finished dressing and washing up, I opened the door only to be met with a broom handle swinging straight toward my face. I jumped back instinctively and saw who was holding it. My mom. Mom, what are you doing here? I asked, confused. And why are you trying to hit me? You dare to dodge? She roared. I'll kill you, you rotten kid. How dare you bully Isabel? Are you tired of living? I looked past my mom and saw Isabel standing in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. My expression grew complicated. Just then, my mom's broomstick connected with my back. I yelled in pain and started dodging around the room, begging for mercy while she chased me. Isabel watched the whole scene with a flicker of interest. She had sent a few texts to my mom claiming I had taken advantage of her, and my mom predictably had come charging over watching me scramble around. Isabel's mind drifted to her visit to our house. She remembered my mom showing her pictures of me as a kid playing naked in the mud covered in soot after an incident with firecrackers, beaming proudly with a trophy. But the memory that stood out the most was my mother taking her hand and placing a family heirloom, a beautiful antique locket, in her palm. Looking at me now, getting beaten for her sake. She thought that maybe, just maybe, being married to me for real wouldn't be so bad. After all, my mom was already on her side. 1 year later, honey, why does Grandpa look so unhappy? I whispered to Isabel. The old man's face was devoid of the cheerful smile I remembered from that dinner table. He looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes that were even worse than mine. Isabel just shot me a smiling sidelong glance. Just then, the old man saw me and looked as if he'd seen a savior. He rushed over, shoved the baby he was holding into my arms, and then turned and practically ran away. I stared after his retreating back and muttered, "Weren't you the one who wanted a great-grandchild?" "What? You're not happy with 3 of them?" Isabel said, laughing as she picked up the other 2 from the floor. "You're so unserious." I looked at the 2 babies, giggling in her arms, and then bounced the one in mine. "Hey, it's a good thing I'm not a serious guy," I said with a grin.